The first thing I did when I launched Farming Simulator 22 was get into the nearest parked car and try to escape the farm. Oddly enough, successfully. It turned out that the playing space is not limited to just one farm, and beyond it are endless forests, mountains and lakes. This discovery added optimism to me. By themselves, I remembered Mark's familiar to open worlds on the map, behind which some collectible items, random events or trials are hidden. But the pleasant anticipation did not last long. The map, of course, was completely empty, people on the streets completely ignored me, there was not a single interactive object around, and even someone else's crops could not be stolen. Apparently, this game is not about fun, I thought, and returned to the farm. This thought stayed with me all the time that I spent in Farming Simulator 22. Thank you for subscribing to the RTV Gaming channel so as not to miss new videos, and we are starting the Farming Simulator series, which is completely focused on farming. I have avoided until this point. The most believable work of a farmer did not seem to me a seductive experience. But the wild popularity of the last part, high sales and positive reviews did their job. Immediately after training, Farming Simulator 22 throws the player literally into an open field, without equipment and property, and the land around is alien. There will be no storyline, not even a friendly parting word. From now on you are on your own. The startup capital that seemed impressive is melting right before our eyes. A novice farmer must acquire ownership, build a couple of buildings and acquire a whole fleet of specialized equipment. From the diversity of some cultivators and types of sowing crops, the eyes run wide. There are more than 100 models of licensed equipment in Farming Simulator 22, and about 15 available for growing crops. At the same time, each tractor has its own characteristics and purpose, and each plant requires an individual approach and a set of tools. But there is also animal husbandry and logging, completely different, it would seem, activities. So it is better to plan a business plan far ahead and purchase strictly for a certain type of activity. The purchased tractors and sheds will not stand idle, because the fields are constantly in need of care. Harvesting, sowing, plowing, cultivating, spraying, fertilizing, collecting stones and delivering everything in the world, all this can be done with your own hands, personally sitting in the cab of the respective machine. Or you can distribute tasks to hired workers in order to focus on management and creating your own production. The management of workers, the construction of buildings and the establishment of production are made quite simply and conveniently, so that the player can immediately delve into these processes. Too bad it can't be said about everything else. One of the biggest problems of Farming Simulator 22 is that it believes that the player is not only familiar with the previous parts of the series, but also managed to work in the real field. A short tutorial mode briefly demonstrates the most basic controls, but does not explain, for example, how to deal with the notorious weeds. How does a farm work in general, how to properly care for crops, how to breed animals and uproot stumps, how a small tractor differs from a medium one, and a disc harrow from an active one. The answers to these and many other questions are either absent or randomly scattered across different layers of not the most convenient interface. At the same time, ignorance of the nuances does not exempt anyone from responsibility. Losing crops, money and time due to improper storage, choice of equipment or processing method is easy here. Learning from your own mistakes is costly and tedious, which will leave a novice farmer doomed to studying guides from external sources. As a result, the first hours in Farming Simulator 22 look like an exam for which the player did not have time to prepare, and even the teacher does not like him. Strawberries dry up, profits fall, and what to do about it is unclear. It remains only to study notes and count on a retake. Perhaps the direct gameplay justifies such a high entry threshold? I would like to, but rather no than yes. At first, everything looks promising, the locations are large and picturesque, the vehicles look and move great. Working in the field is surprisingly soothing. However, after you process the first field, the game can be considered more or less completed. There will be nothing new in Farming Simulator 22. Behind the external variety of activities and tools, there are only two mechanics: you either drive slowly across the field, or drive a little faster along the road. Yes, each crop requires the right equipment, and the land must be plowed, sown and irrigated, but it all feels exactly the same. It doesn't matter if your farmer raises pigs or runs his own tailor shop, most of the time you just drive from one point to another in one way or another. Such gameplay does not turn into a routine, it is a routine. Moreover, the routine is very long, because plowing a medium-sized field alone can take more than an hour of real time. The idea is that the player must give the tractor to the worker, and he himself go to expand the business, but here Farming Simulator 22 has serious problems. The dream to build an agrarian empire quickly runs into a rich crop of bugs and decisions so strange that they, too, can be mistaken for bugs at first. For example, purchased supplies constantly either disappear for no reason, or vice versa, they cease to be spent at all, and the time rewind function for some reason speeds up the work of buildings, but does not affect the operation of equipment in any way. Pricing is also quite specific. The sale price of raw materials can be 10 times higher than the sale price of a finished product made from the same raw materials. About all sorts of visual trifles, such as pedestrians getting stuck in geometry or snowdrifts that disappear immediately after a snowfall, it's even awkward to talk about. The very workers controlled by AI deserve special mention. Even one field, as a rule, cannot do without several mercenaries, and a dozen assistants can participate in a large production. The bad news is that artificial intelligence is insanely primitive. Hired dummies regularly throw out something ridiculous, they miss giant uncultivated plots of land, suddenly refuse to work, or freeze tightly in front of each other, because they cannot part in an open field. Attempts to play manager quickly slide into a babysitter simulator. Instead of building factories and buying land, the player has to deal with colliding tractor drivers, check how badly the plowman has cheated and poke the harvesters with their noses into the long-ripened crop. It may not be too far from the duties of a real farmer, but here, apart from taking care of the workers, the manager has nothing to worry about. By themselves, the construction and production turned out to be not difficult, so the whole challenge here is solely in the accumulation of funds for a new field or the building of some kind of confectionery. If you manage to cross the unreasonably high threshold of entry into Farming Simulator 22, your reward will be monotonous gameplay, poor optimization, inconvenient interface, dead environments and ubiquitous bugs. Who can recommend this game? The obvious answer is for someone who loves agriculture very much. After all, what is happening must be really well conveys the feeling of working in the field. This is a monotonous, but meditative activity, for which you can kill a lot of time. And judging by the sales of Farming Simulator 22, many people like this kind of entertainment. The series retains popularity and popular love, despite all the shortcomings. The authors of the game, unfortunately, understand this. The new part of the series does not at all try to attract a new audience and attract the attention of those who are not interested in farming at all. It's a pity. A good video game can make almost any activity interesting, but Farming Simulator 22 is not one of them.